I got a call yesterday, and it's actually a conversation as well, a person from a couple who are having some difficulty with their parents and in-laws. Their parents are not showing Torah mitzvahs, and they are. And when they come, they have all sorts of interesting requests that don't necessarily conform with Torah standards. They're asking me how to act, and the first thing I told them was that you can't make a war out of this. The goal, the goal in such an interaction is the Kaddish Shem Shemayim, to sanctify Hashem's name. Your parents should see that becoming religious didn't distance them from you, but actually brought you closer together. It actually brought you closer together. There's a book about Rav Mendel Kaplan, and they write there a story about two mothers waiting for their children to come from the Israeli Air Force. And one mother says to the other mother, "My son is a Baal Tshuva. He's not going to come home to me." And she was crying. And that's a sad story. Becoming religious shouldn't distance children from their parents. If anything, it should bring them closer to a true understanding of the relationship between parents and children. I'd just like to bring out a very critical point here today about the mitzvah of kibbud avim, of honoring your parents. It's one of the two places in the Torah where it promises long life. In fact, it's a medrash in Parshas Eikev. The medrash says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's in medrash Tanchuma Eikev Parsha Beis. The medrash says that in two places Hashem promised reward of long life, right? And one of them is in the Kalos, and one of them is in the Chamuras, right? An easy mitzvah and a hard mitzvah. And the easy mitzvah is Shluach again, right? It says in Dvarim Chav Beis, Barach Yamim, and the difficult mitzvah is Kibbud Aveim, as it says there in same parsha, L'man Yerichu Yimecha, Kiv Kavod Esavicha V'Esmecha L'man Yerichu Mecha, right? So they get the same schar, even though one is very easy and one is very difficult. And in fact, Chazal tell us that really are telling us, in fact, one of the easiest mitzvahs to do is Shluach again. It's actually not so easy. I've done it a number of times, and I've looked into halachas extensively. Right? You have to first be if a bird nest comes to your home, you have to first be mafkir the windowsill, so you shouldn't acquire the eggs. There's a halach, it has to be min hefker v'lo min mazumin. Ki yikra kan sipur, it has to be as you're coming along. Yes, it's not such an easy mitzvah, halachas, but in action and cost, it's very easy. All you have to do is really go up to the bird, shoot away, and then take the eggs. Some people put them back and do it again. There's different ways people do it. It's quite an easy mitzvah. On the other hand, kibbud aveim is really, really hard. Anybody who has parents or is a parent knows that it's not easy honoring your parents, especially in this generation, because one of the major reasons because there's a generation gap between generations, and one generation is per force different than the other, and it's difficult for parents and children, for children to honor their parents, especially as they get older and they get weaker and they need them more, right? As the Gemara tells us, right, that one parent can take care of 10 children, but 10 children can't necessarily take care of one parent. And part of the reason is that the love imbued within a parent for a child is much greater than that of a child to the parent. So it's hard for them to get the yusmazikol in Hebrew, it's energy, to take care of their parent. But it struck me interesting 2 points here. Number one, why specifically these two mitzvahs are chosen? And number two, why the reward for long life for these two mitzvahs? And I realized something as follows, that both these mitzvahs have something in common. They're both respecting the the parent-child relationship, right? Kibbud aveim is obvious, right? Respecting it, right? And so too, shluach haken, Shluch Ken is that the mother bird gave birth to these eggs, yeah, and the you're going to take the eggs. You're allowed to take the eggs because you're allowed to eat them. And in fact, one year we had Shluch Ken in our house, and they were doves. We took the eggs and we ate them by our Yantiv Suda, make sure that they're kosher birds. In fact, the mitzvah only applies to kosher birds. We had those eggs. So really the mitzvah is to take the eggs and even to eat them. Abanim tikach l'chad is a skula to have children after Shlach Ken. Some say it's only if you actually eat the eggs. But in any event, you're respecting the relationship between the mother and the child because um, you are not taking the birds, not taking the eggs right in front of the mother's eyes. You're sending the mother away first and then taking them. We're not allowed to say that Hashem's mitzvahs are achamim. The Mishnah says, whoever says that, we're quieting him. I'm not coming to say that that's why you're doing it, but you do see an element of mercy here, right? In the essence of the mitzvah, right? We're not allowed to say that that's why you're doing the mitzvah. The mitzvahs are chukim of Hashem. But the Torah is megala to us a respect for the relationship between generations, between parents and children. So both of these mitzvahs are that. And the reason we get long life is because you are respecting the concept of life. The concept of life Hashem gives us is from parent to child. Parents bring children into this world, and you're respecting that relationship through these two mitzvahs of kibbud av v'em, of honoring your parents, and by sending the mother bird away. You're showing respect for that relationship. When you show respect for something, so then Hashem gives it to you, right? You can only really appreciate something if you respect it and you believe that it's something important. So by believing that the process of life from generation to generation, as we see in the two mitzvahs of honoring your parents and of Shluch Haken, if you believe that that process is something important, so Hashem gives it to you. And I once wanted to suggest that's every time we have a piece of cake or some crackers, we make alamichya, we say, so, um, what does it mean, ritzitza? You wanted it, and you gave it to um, our ancestors, right? If Hashem wants Eretz Yisrael, why do you give it to us, right? So the answer is because when you really want something to be taken care of and preserved, you give it to someone who values it. We value Eretz Yisrael, right? We value Eretz Yisrael as a place where we could do mitzvahs, not necessarily as a country, right? We're not in Alamichi, we're not talking about the country of Israel. We're talking about the concept of Eretz Yisrael, of a land of Kedusha and Tyra. So we value Eretz Yisrael as something which is really, really important. As Ramban says, all the mitzvahs outside of Eretz Yisrael are only practiced. So since we value it, so then Hashem gives it to us. He wants it, Shiratzitza. He wants Eretz Yisrael. He wants it in good hands. So he gave it to the Jews who keep the mitzvahs. So too by the mitzvahs of Kibbud Av V'em. If we want life, we should value life. And how do we value life? We show our value of life by honoring our parents and by doing Shluch Haken. These two mitzvahs. These two mitzvahs is really where we megala, where we reveal the importance of life and what life is really all about, and respect of life. In fact, they say the Arizal wouldn't even kill a little ant, yeah, because there's some element of life in that. He couldn't bring himself even to kill like a little ant or a fly or a mosquito. Of course, that's Midas Chasidus. If there's a mosquito flying in your ear, you're permitted to kill it as long as it's not Shabbos. But for the Arizal, the concept of life was so critical, was so fundamental, that he couldn't even bring himself to kill a little mosquito. So this is something we can think about when we're dealing with our parents, and also when we're dealing with our children. And if we're zocha to have the mitzvah of kibbud av v'em, of shluch haken. But even though it's a difficult mitzvah, right, to show our respect to our parents, we should do everything possible to fulfill it with the proper parameters And that really means understanding that how much we really owe our parents, as the Sefer Chinuch says, that it's supposed to bring us to fear of God. Fearing your parents is supposed to bring fear of God, because like our parents gave us life in this world, so Hashem gives us life in this world. And if we appreciate our parents, then we'll appreciate life. And if we appreciate life, we'll appreciate Hashem who gave us life. Every single second of the day, He's busy giving life to us and keeping us alive. And especially as we continue this period of Chevli Mashiach, so many tragedies and difficulties are happening. A week doesn't go by we don't hear about one. And the wars raging in the world, all these things that are going on. We should appreciate life more and more and more. We should appreciate the tremendous gift that Hashem has given us of life. And I'll conclude with that point. My close friend, Rabbi Ben Kermer, once told me that David HaMelech was the quintessential appreciator of life. He used his life so wonderfully. He accomplished so many wonderful things in his life. And why was that? Chazal tells us he was supposed to die at birth. He was given from Adam Rishon a present of 70 years. And David HaMelech understood that every second of his life was a gift. If we appreciate that every second of our life is a gift, then we can use it properly. There's no such thing as wasting time. There's no such thing as burning or killing time, right? Killing time is like suicide. So we can really imbue that with ourselves by honoring, doing the mitzvah of Shluch HaKen and honoring our parents and eventually honoring Hashem, who's the true giver of life, recognizing His infinite chesed that He does for us by giving us life. Hashem should help us to come to this recognition every moment of the day, to appreciate the beautiful gift that we have in our life, and use every moment to for the greatest possible usage and benefit. Hashem should help us in this endeavor. Amen.